The AusIMM Women in Mining Network Committee would like to welcome all new leaders to the mining industry. It's an industry that gives many people from all walks of life the opportunity to earn a good living and be personally challenged. On a global scale, it also helps many countries raise their living standards. Today I speak on behalf of the Women in Mining Committee. The committee is led by Donna Frater of BMA. Another member of the committee is here today, Demi Whitman. He will be speaking to you this afternoon. It's a pleasure to know the rest of the committee members. We give each other support. We're passionate about driving change, helping others, and we're starting to make a difference. This is my third New Leaders talk, and I always like to share a few things that I've learnt recently that have had a big impact on my professional development. So recently it's been about leadership and courage. So today I'll talk about, today's talk will feature on some discussion on leadership and courage, and I'll bring these themes together to show an example via the Women in Mining Committee. I'll then conclude on some ideas about how you might like to exhibit courageous leadership as new leaders. So let's start on leadership. Opportunities abound in these booming times, and many of you will be asked to demonstrate leadership early on in your careers. This prospect might excite and fear you at the same time. It should. Leadership has a large impact on organisational effectiveness. Know that it is possible to become a good leader. But what sort of leader will you be? These are 5 levels of leadership. John Maxwell is the leadership guru who put this model up, and also I've seen a great talk by Margot Cairns who elaborated on this a little bit further. This shows leadership styles from least to most influential, and on this axis here it talks about the length of time that you should spend at each of these levels. Level 1 is the lowest level, and that's position. That's when a position of authority is given to you. Most people follow you because they have to. Employees probably don't like you, and the leader can actually be a bully. Employees think, how little do I have to do to keep my job? How effective do you think this organisation might be? Level 2 is permission. People follow because they want to. The leader does develop the relationships, but the leader is mainly interested in the people who can directly help them. So everything's okay for the employee as long as they're making their boss look good. So you may see some inconsistent behaviours and even some fear. Level 3 is production. People want to work for this leader because they're achieving great things for their organisation. They have momentum happening. People want to work for successful groups. The leader still has a little way to go though. When things go great, they take the credit, and when things go bad, they blame their team. Level 4 is people. People want to work for the leader because the leader is developing them as employees. Loyalty kicks in because people around have grown and developed. When things go great, the leaders give credit to their team, and when things go bad, the leader takes the blame. The leader is humble. This is where most of you should aspire to. Level 5 is personhood. People follow the leader because of who they are and what they've done for the organisation and people over time. There is respect, and people will follow the leader wherever they go. Many of you have done vacation work and are working now, will be soon. Maybe you have seen examples of these leaders already. Do take time to observe and see what type of leader you're working for. Note what it feels like and what the effects are on the team. You may be even doing some supervision and have this opportunity to try this model out. It's important to remember that we're all human and not all your supervisors will be at level 4. If you do get a supervisor at a lower level, it's sometimes just helpful to know they're at that lower level. And if things get a little tough, remind you that it's them, not you, and be patient. If you get a level 4 leader, lucky you. Enjoy the ride and take lots of notice. Let's now move on to courage. The courage I speak of is not an act of heroism. It's about thinking for yourself, deciding what you actually think and making your own decisions and choices. Courage is the opportunity to consciously do something that you know is right, even though it might be against popular thought. It makes sense in most cases to follow instructions. It leaves us to think about the important things. It's easy to go with the flow and rock the boat. But what about when things are not okay? it may surprise you to know that humans are perhaps a little bit too ready to comply. The famous Milgram Experiment illustrates this. It was set up to see the willingness of ordinary citizens to comply with orders. It was set up around the time of the Nazi war criminal trials, 1961, in our university. The experiment consisted of 3 participants: the experimenter, the teacher, and the learner. The experimenter ordered the teacher to administer electric shocks to the learner for wrong answers. The shock voltage was gradually increased. The reality is there were no electric shocks, only just a good actor complaining. So this guy was actually the target of the experiment. A total of 65% of those teachers administered the highest shock, obeying the experimenter's orders over the complaints of the person receiving the shocks. The conclusion is that most people will comply with authority, even if they think it's wrong. It's really hard to have courage. There was one exception to this rule, a man called Rodden Riddenhauer. He refused to give even the first shock. He became a young GI who served in the 11th Infantry Brigade during the Vietnam War. He blew the whistle on the My Lai massacre in South Vietnam. The event created worldwide outrage and reduced the support in the US for the Vietnam War. Riddenhauer whistle blew against the wishes of his family and friends. It took nearly 30 years for him to be recognised for his courage. What made him the exception rather than the rule? So let's bring these two concepts of courage and leadership together. What is courageous leadership? It's not when you know that something's not okay. If you're ostracised for your views, you don't see anyone doing much about it, you're passionate about doing something, you see there's benefits to change, and you decide to take action by yourself or in a group. The challenge then is to put across a message so that it engages people who can make that change. It may be even as straightforward as you asking an experienced worker to put on their fall arrest gear when they're working at heights. A good outcome is that you can have that conversation, they take action and they thank you for it. We see many things around the globe that are not okay. We are very lucky to grow up in Australia in this time. Perhaps not on the scale of wider global issues, but you may be surprised to learn that there's still work to do in Australia in the mining industry and then on the subjects of diversity and the gender pay gap. So let's move on to courageous leadership in action, women in mining. In these times, it's difficult to attract and retain employees. In the first 2 speakers this morning, you heard that the people shortage is a problem. But there's an increased reliance as well on migrants and non-traditional sources of labour, which is the part-timers, the mature age and the female. However, it's just not enough to have these people and assets sitting in seats. There's growing evidence that the employee actually needs to be engaged in your business to make it really productive. Engaged employees give the extra discretionary effort. The not engaged are checked out doing the time without the energy, and the actively disengaged undermine what engaged people are doing in your organisation. According to Gallup's 2006 engagement study of 1,000 people across a broad range of industry sectors, actively disengaged employees are more likely to have high levels of absenteeism and safety incidents. They take less pride in the workplace and are less likely to be advocates for the workplace or the products and services that they represent. The survey results show 21% of employees are engaged, 61% are not engaged, and 18% of Australian employees are actively disengaged, costing businesses around $32 billion a year. If employees perceive they're not valued and they're not given the same opportunities as their colleagues, they become disengaged. The non-traditional employees have a high risk of employee disengagement. And employers, without even knowing it, often choose a more traditional employee for development and promotion. We can explain away departures from mining as normal turnover, not fitting in, wanting different experiences, but that doesn't really help us address the expected shortfall of 70,000 skilled workers in the mining industry by 2015. We need to embrace diversity. The 2007 AusIMM Employment and Remuneration Survey revealed a significant pay gap in the mining professions. this actually shocked many people, as they thought that this was the thing of the past. They thought, isn't this thing sort of sorted? A lot of companies have policies and procedures and all this sort of stuff, but the reality was it actually wasn't being implemented. So it shocked people. They were ready to listen to something. So there was a real opportunity to investigate this and offer solutions to attract and retain more people in the industry. Before some of you get disheartened on this issue of gender pay gap, we had a bit of a chat with Western Australia Government's Pay Equity Unit, and we actually revealed that there's still a problem across many industries. The finance industry actually has a larger pay gap, the mining and even the public service has a pay gap. So the WIMNet committee thought, well, we'd better get together and analyse this and see what we can do about it. So this is a matrix of the causes of the pay gap. These causes are plotted on a matrix of how difficult it is to alter them against the impact they'll have in reducing the pay gap here. Factors that have contributed to the pay gap and full participation relate to a number of themes: history, transparency, confidence, processes, and being a primary carer. Historically, it was acceptable to overtly discriminate against women, both at the recruitment stages and in pay packets. In 1969, legislation was introduced to rectify this. However, confidentiality of employment contracts means little opportunity for transparency and to ensure quality. Women have less confidence in men than asking for pay rises and promotions. A recent study carried out in the US showed that this behaviour is not entirely unreasonable. The study showed that when women carried out the same assertiveness tactics in salary negotiations as their male counterparts, not only were they frequently unsuccessful, but they were perceived as angry. This coupled with lack of process in promotions, unconsciously promoting the traditional person, and not really addressing the diversity issues means that women are just not getting ahead. Some women have children, but assumptions are made about most female employees' commitment and promotional suitability. Women trade pay for flexibility and part-time, and sometimes cannot work at all due to lack of suitable childcare. There appear to be more women in consulting, where there's more flexibility, and this usually plays an equivalent role in a corporate. So falling out, there appeared to be two themes we could make a difference. The first was to support women in the industry to gain confidence and see that it's possible to succeed. And the second, we needed to advocate for women. We need to communicate that there are still equity issues, raise the awareness of the importance of diversity in business, and continue to raise childcare issues. The priorities for 2008 and 2009 emerged. The Gender Pay Gap survey needed some better questions, and the survey was actually run early in 2008, and I've got those results here. The very successful networking events are a high priority, and they're actually expanded into some regional areas. Childcare advocacy is high on the agenda, with helping women also raise their confidence. We also need to continue to get the message out to promote successful companies and women. So the general findings from the 2008 remuneration survey were the retention of women over 34 still appears to be low. The gender pay gap is significant across all levels. There's some positive changes around mid-career salaries from last year's survey. There's still lots of negative perceptions around flexible work practices and the impact of childcare on career, and the costs of caring are affecting both male and female retention. In communicating this issue to business leaders, it became obvious to us that many of the changes we were talking about were actually around the attraction retention issue, and so they're for the benefit for all, not just women. A few business leaders asked our advice and we gave a prompt recommendation that was well received. I'll also share the recommendations with you now, as they may serve as a checklist for you in the future to help you out. So the first thing was to actually ask your employees, ask them what they want when you're talking about these issues. In the recent QRC Resource Awards for Women, a category winner, Ernest Henry, introduced a very flexible work program, so it was more on part-time issues because they had a lot of single mothers in the town. Whereas another winner, BMA Blackwater Mine, the women really wanted to work full-time. The priority was around childcare, after-school care, vacation care, so they could continue to work their full shifts. So there's a difference based on maybe where you are and what your demographic is. Also, do the business case. A US survey found for every dollar a company spends on flexible or family benefits, there's a return to $2 to $6 through reduced absenteeism and increased motivation and rates of retention. So the companies, we just asked them just to do the numbers and they might be surprised. Culture is a really big one. It doesn't cost anything to be positive and polite and inclusive of all employees. Consciously monitor promotion and pay gaps. It's just not enough to have a policy and say, oh, look, you know, we've got a booklet here and it says we do it. The reason why people were shocked is because they thought that these policies meant that things were going to happen. So it is important just to go and have a look, set some KPIs, look at your demographics, ask the questions, and make sure that you've got good performance management and promotion with diversity checks in there. Maternity leave. A lot of women really do want to come back to work, so it's about making things easy to come back to work and offering incentives and just maintaining contact with employees on those career breaks. Childcare, Monica Sada will be speaking to you later this morning. She's also on the WIMNet committee and she does an amazing job in this space. She does a lot of work with the government making submissions. But there's a fair bit about the fringe benefits tax and having employees having access to suitable childcare, and it's just not daycare, it's after school care, it's a vacation care to suit the mining rosters. Flexibility. Flexibility can be full hours, and it's just one, companies should look at it as just one way that people can work. And if it's just one way people can work, people can have it for doing community activities and sports and study and those sort of things. Support, assist women to gain confidence through development and mentoring, and support a lot of the networking events that are around the place. And also the last thing we said to companies was, you know, promote your success. If you don't have a pay gap, tell everybody about it. You'll get lots of people being interested in your company. And, you know, so just, and keep sharing those so other people can also do the things. If we return to that engaged workforce debate, you'll see many of these things here apply to everybody, just not women. So this is why the issue was very easy for us to communicate. So, what's it feel like to lead courageously? Well, after working for 15 years in the mining industry, I can tell you it's not very nice when your bosses and peers call you an activist. It makes it really hard. It's also hard staying positive sometimes because you read about the issues, people tell you stories, and sometimes you feel like giving up because you think, oh, this is just all too hard. But on the flip side, it's really exciting being on the Women in Mining Committee because we feel like we're being at the forefront. Change, people are listening to us, asking our advice, so it's pretty exciting working together. And we're starting to achieve things, we're getting positive feedback from business leaders who are asking our advice. It's great finding all of these fantastic examples of where companies are doing some fantastic stuff. And it's also great that by raising all these issues, it's actually serving a wider purpose for the companies. It's all about attraction and retention and engaged workforces and trying to offer them some constructive solutions. But for the AusIMM, a lot of the problems and issues that we had were also the issues in the AusIMM. There's a bit of a membership. People, you know, tend to, when they go off to mining sites and stuff, we get a drop off in membership from the 25 to 35 year age group. They're not seeing the value as much. So a lot of the issues that we were raising also would fix that particular problem with engaging that demographic as well more. So what's your challenge? As I said, that gap between the 20 and 35 year group, it's pretty low on the membership list. So is your challenge going to be to get involved in that space in the virtual branch? A lot of you are incredibly active and do amazing organisation, and you have so much enthusiasm when you're students, and then you go to mine sites, you start working hours, you're not in a city centre and stuff, and but what's going to stop you maybe trying to see how the AusIMM can serve you better? So how about stepping up, instead of complaining the only benefit that you get is an AusIMM bulletin, maybe you can jump into the new leaders space or the virtual branch space, and you're the people who know what you want, so you can drive that change as well. You'll more than likely have some safety issue when you start working, or if you're working where you need to step up and maybe tell someone off or actually get someone to do something safely that they're not doing, and finding a way to have that conversation with them to get them to change their behaviour. You'll also be doing probably some shift supervision time at some stage as well, so you have that chance to sort of step up and lead courageously there as well. But the key messages here is that everyone can be a good leader, and have courage. Think for yourself and know that you can make a difference. Thanks.